Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Most Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And apologies to what took place earlier. We do get these people every now and then. So, inshallah, the best thing to do is ignore, be patient, do our best in making sure that we filter our attendees and then move on, inshallah. It's a new year, it's a new beginning. We're not really celebrating that, but acknowledging the fact that a year has gone by in the hopes that, inshallah, the coming days be better days for us as individuals, as families, communities, humanity, and whoever is out there. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Also, interestingly, whenever we have the halaqah for brothers and sisters, like to focus this, of course, on relationships and family related issues. And what happened is that just usually um, around the summertime, I love to speak about this idea of um, in the summer. I like to speak about how I love garage sales. Garage sales around the spring and the summer are just really, really beautiful to look at. Because what happens is that people are, emptying space. They are getting rid of things that they do not need. And similarly, sometimes as individuals, we should be making spaces, be it spaces in our hearts, be it spaces in what occupies us emotionally, and so on, and get rid of it so that we make space for newer things, better things, and getting rid of things that we really don't need. Winter time, though, is different. In the winter, we need to have fire. And interestingly, we need to attend to the fire in order to keep warm so that the flames do not go down. And similarly, in a relationship where there is fire, that flame needs to be attended to so that it does not dwindle and die and go out. Because then it will be just be very cold and it will be freezing. So this is how, just coming up with different times require that we do things differently. And so, inshallah, this is what we will be talking about. And hopefully, inshallah, we would like to keep this going on for this month of January, if that's okay with everybody. We usually have one halaqah for the brothers and sisters, and then the rest is for the sisters. But if it's okay, inshallah, for the month of January, since it's the beginning of the year, I don't know if people have, resolutions or not, but we're hoping that this be a new beginning, inshallah, and in the hopes that this is what we will be talking about. Also, in the past, just very quickly, we've shared with you that in any, and I'm making the assumption that our attendees here are all married people. So I apologize if that does not apply to everybody, but these are things that can be applicable to any relationship. Specifically, though, we said that in a marital relationships, there are usually six main issues that couples are constantly dealing with, grappling with. And the first one, is poor communication. Usually in relationships, especially in marital relationships, poor communication comes at the very top of the list. In addition to that, we also have financial issues. I hope you all are just liking the images that I have chosen for this. Financial issues. People speak a lot about how do we spend money, how much do we save, where do we spend it on. And remember, out of the six topics that we will be talking about, some couples may experience all of them, some couples may experience some of them, some couples may experience some more than others, and so on. So people can say, look, this does not apply to me, and that's perfectly fine. And please keep in mind that whenever we speak about human relationships are usually based, the study of human relationships, in fact, all of social science is based on observation. We did not interview every single married couple in order for us to come to this conclusion. people interviewed enough, they observed enough to make some general observations. And because it is based on observation, there will always be an exception to that. Very common also is people arguing about time. He or she is not spending time with me, with her, with the kids, with the family. Asma, and like somebody is waiting to be admitted, and I'm not sure if I should admit them or not. I'll leave that up to you. Okay, but time is also another issue that people struggle with, and that is, what, how much time is spent or not spent. A big, huge one is intimacy. This is what we call an issue where people going through this, they suffer in silence. Because remember, the intimacy is about people still expressing interest in the other person. So what you see is a lot of bedroom related issues, they go unspoken about because people just really don't know where to go, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to address them. And they usually come in the form of contempt, in the form of anger, and so on. And I just, also like to remind people out there that this is part of the subspecialty that I do, when you talk about sex therapy and intimacy related issues. But that is definitely an issue that a good number of people actually struggle with. And please remember, while we are at this topic, there is a difference between struggling with this thing for some time but not all the time. Same thing about, what, I just lost my job and we're struggling financially right now. But this just happens to be right now. Or right now, because of whatever reason, somebody's health is down, intimacy is becoming an issue. So we're not talking about the every now and then challenges. We're talking about over an extended period of time that becomes a problem as well. After having kids, that is usually raising children, how to raise them, how many to have, when to have them, how do we discipline them. That is also going to be another issue where, what, different parenting styles. And inshallah, we will be starting a parenting workshop soon, inshallah. But that is definitely another issue that people struggle with. Of course, in some cultures, especially Eastern cultures, I apologize for the cartoon, but I think it's funny. And that is issues with in-laws, usually in Eastern cultures, because of the way that people do this in families. Usually have a struggle with the in-laws, and mainly that is an issue of boundaries. How do we do the boundaries. Alrighty, so having said that, just like to say that, in a way, we will be talking to the brothers. Another way, inshallah, we will be talking um to the sisters. Meaning that what would it take for a man, what a man needs to understand, so that inshallah that reflects positively on his relationship. And what does a sister need to understand in order for inshallah, for also things to reflect positively on her relationship and marriage. And please do not be offended as I talk. Part of the Zoom experience is I love the convenience. I really do. The good number of people, I think Zoom is just absolutely being very, very convenient. But you also run the risk of not seeing how people are reacting, or you miss out on creating that personal relationship where people get used to you and you get used to them. They know when you are being funny, they know when you're being serious, so you're always running the risk of being misunderstood. So I said, please just give this a chance. If I say anything remotely funny, please laugh. Not that I'm waiting for you to tell me that I am funny. I mean, alhamdulillah, I know that I am funny. Whether you agree or not, that's really doesn't make a difference. But the point is, you take a risk when you speak through this medium, about these issues. All righty. So, um, love busters are things that people do in a relationship that makes continuing loving them actually difficult to do. You're a great guy, you're a great girl, but right now the kind of things that you do are literally acting like love busters. And the way that we do this is either constant criticism, disrespect, lack of trust. These things are considered to be love busters, and they would literally drain the relationship and they would suck the life out of any relationship, no matter how good that relationship is. All right. Um, Also, a really important point to understand is what stage of marriage are we in? Because all marriages go through different stages. And again, please remember that this may be applicable to some and not applicable to others. Some have gone through all of these stages, others have gone through only some of them. Remember that this is all based on observation as well. So what that means is that when people get married, there are stages that we go through, and being aware of what stage I am in actually helps in the process. Alrighty, like a tree, and just love observing trees around. You see what is going on. Well, it's shedding all the leaves. Why is that? Well, it's the winter time, and then it's getting the leaves back, and so on. Similarly, this is what happens. Stage one is usually that's the stage when we say that passion prevails. This is the stage of a lot of excitement. It is a stage of a lot of high hopes, high expectations, a lot of hopefulness and optimism that people find in this stage, and they just really can't wait. This stage, supposedly also in practicing Muslims, they find this stage to be possibly potentially more exciting than other people, because as you know that in our deen, a man and a woman are supposed to be keeping a healthy distance from each other prior to marriage, meaning that you only come very close to a man or to a woman once you have gotten married. There was actually a study that was done about the way that why are marriages so expensive nowadays. And in one of the suggestions, in one of the studies, it was said that because people have done everything and anything prior to marriage, meaning that they've lived with each other, they have been together physically, they've stayed with each other, they've lived with each other. It's like there isn't really much more excitement to look forward to. So people become very extravagant um, with their weddings and so on in order to bring some of that excitement back. Now, for people who have not been together, that the excitement in that wedding is real because it's really leading to something that is big. In any case, so in this stage, passion prevails. People are extremely excited, and this, depending on the couple, can last anywhere from day one up to a year. It can last for a few months, 3 months, whatever the case is. But initially, that is the first stage. Also, if there has been courting that was done before, people, talking to each other and wanting to be together. Stage two is a stage of disappointment. What was I thinking? All of the sudden, you are now living with this individual, and you are finding that, you know what, they're just human beings like you. They are absolutely full of flaws. What initially appeared to be cute is no longer cute anymore. and what was so attractive about them is not the case anymore. And that is the case where you just talk to yourself and say, what in the world have I done? What was I thinking? And remember that at this point, because novelty has gone away, our body is no longer producing the same amount of endorphins that it was at the very, initially. Because subhanallah, there is a really nice study about this as well. And that is eventually our brains, they get used to this image, but we are more excited by novelty. Now that the novelty is gone, then novelty is gone. So now we get to this idea of the second stage is there is disappointment, and we wake up to the horror of horrors and we say, what was I thinking? And hopefully, inshallah, none of us is in this stage, even though we like to revisit this stage every now and then. We like to go back at it and say, what was I thinking when this happened? And then we go to stage three. Stage three is when we try to make that compromise and say, well, you know what? Everything would be great if you changed. Okay. Let me tell you how you need to change. So I have my list of what she needs to be doing. She has her list of what I need to be doing. And if you just changed, what would happen is that everything is going to be great. One of my favorite things to hear couple talk about is, you know what, this person's changed after marriage. The person didn't really change after marriage. You just gained a better ability to see now. But the person did not really change, or that's what we would like to say is that the person did not really change. Maybe you were not paying attention. Maybe you were too blinded by love. And by the way, the idea of being blinded by love is very, very true. It is so true that it was also used by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, the idea is when we are in love, you know, our sight is actually clouded. We don't see clearly. I'm not talking about sight as in seeing. I'm talking about our insight. And in the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "حبك الشيء يعمي ويصم." Said, your love for a thing would blind you and make you deaf. You're just not listening. Try to talk to a teenager nowadays, or somebody in their early 20s who believe that they are in love, and try to just talk sense into them. They're just absolutely not seeing what you're seeing, and they're not hearing what you are hearing. So حبك شيء, like the Prophet ﷺ says, your love for a thing would make you blind, meaning that you are unable to see the faults, the deficiencies, and so on. But in this stage, what we hope for is that the person changes. I usually, I would love for, had this been more interactive and people, trusted me more and they trusted the process more, I would be asking people, what was your biggest disappointment? Now that you've gotten married and you've got to this, you know what, when you said to yourself, what was I thinking? What were you thinking? Like, what made you say that statement? What did you see? Or in stage three, and please feel free to private message me if you feel comfortable and say everything. Please don't say everything. So what happens now is that in stage three, people would say everything would be great if you changed, um, and then they would have their list of what would happen. And then we go to stage four. And stage four is a stage where we get to this point of that's just the way he or she is. You know what? That's just how they are. And um, and then this is a really, really stage two and stage four are the most difficult stages. And unfortunately, that is also when a good number of relationships come to an end. By the way, statistically speaking, most divorce take place. I mean, just depends on how you look at the statistics. So, generally speaking, divorce rate is at 48% at this point. All right. If either of the couples is under 25, especially if both of them are under 25, their chances, they are the segment with the highest chance of getting divorce. If either parties have been married before, their chances of getting divorced are at 67%. If either parties were married before and they have children from a previous marriage, their chances of divorce are at 73%. Now, remember, this is all, remember, this is, I mean, based on observation. And the reason for that, they say, especially with the 73%, is because they say, well, let's just say that I have two kids from a previous marriage and she has two kids from a previous marriage. So now what needs to happen is that there are three of us and there are three of them, and now all six people, they need to get along with each other. Versus if it was just one person and one person, it's just only two people that need to get along with each other. But now we need all six people to get along with each other. In addition to the six people, we also have another two people that need to get along with the six people. And these are my ex and her ex. Now, eight people need to get along in order for this to work out. In any case, so now what happens is people come to this stage, stage four, and they say, well, this is just the way he or she is. What's next for you? I quit. I don't like how they are. I don't like how they behave, and therefore I am I am out of here. So in stage two, there is this disappointment, and in stage four, there is an opportunity for acceptance, or there is an opportunity of just just forget it. And most people, they quit before they get to stage five, and stage five is together at last. And that is people become aware of this is how he is, this is how they are. And in this particular case, we have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة إذا كره منها خلقا رضي منها آخر. Say that a believing man does not totally abandon or leave a believing woman. If he dislikes some of her traits, he will find many others that he likes about this individual. Meaning that you get to the point that I am not married to an angel. I am married to a fallible human being like me, who's not necessarily perfect, but there is a lot of good in them, and I choose to celebrate. Um, I choose to celebrate the good in that, and you know what? We'll just accept the person as they are at this point. And please remember, when we say that accept me as I am, does not mean that I stop attempting into modifying my behavior so that we can get along better. And then, of course, there is the stage of together at last. All right. So, brothers, you need to know the following. Okay. Please, all get ready for this, and somebody can give some drum roll here. But one thing to understand, thank you, Zain. One thing to understand about sisters, and please, sisters, do not be offended by this. I say this, wallahi, I say this out of love. Most women naturally feel more insecure than men, especially when it comes to their relationships. Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time in being politically correct. The gist of the point is most women feel more insecure in their relationship than men do. In one of the studies, they found out that Seven out of 10 women say that their love relationship, I'm talking about their marital relationship here, is that it is occasionally to always on their mind, always thinking about that. Now, why is this important? Okay, so let me just tell you this. When a woman gets married, that marriage becomes everything in her life. When a man gets married, that marriage is part of his life. Okay. So it's a total different approach into how that is. So 7 out of 10 women are saying that, look, when it comes to my marriage, that relationship is occasional to always is in my mind. And then when women feel insecure about their love relationship, this is really, really interesting. The feelings can be very intense. They can be feeling very anxious. Of course, they're preoccupied, always in their mind. Emotionally, possibly withdrawn, feel undervalued, to actually feeling absolutely depressed at a time. Because that sense of security is immensely important to them. Okay, so please, this is not about looking down, or this is just about stating a fact so that people can actually start understanding. All right. So now what happens is, when a woman feels insecure, she starts feeling very anxious, preoccupied, emotional withdrawn, undervalued, to full out depressed. Well, what happens at that point is, a man not knowing this, the man now becomes distance, which is going to increase her sense of anxiety about the relationship. And because now he is distance, she feels undervalued. And now because she feels undervalued, that can actually also lead to this, full out depression that we are talking about.
Yeah,
When does, sorry, is somebody talking to me? All right. So when does when does a woman feel most um, insecure about this? Okay, these are the four triggers that would leave a woman feeling insecure. Conflict. Now, conflict in any relationship, marital or otherwise, are very, very common. Conflicts are just absolutely common, but they hold different values for women. Let me just give you a quick scenario, or a quick example, and just see um, if we can play with that a bit. Okay, so here you have got, um, let's say that you're having people over. So think either pre-COVID, or be optimistic and think after post-COVID, inshallah. Not right now. Okay, think in the past, or think about this in the future. Okay, so you are planning on having people over, and here is the sister, working really hard in making sure that everything is ready for the guests, and she's getting everything done. And for whatever reason, sisters are very tense at that point, because they want everything to be perfect. But the brothers, mashallah, tabarakallah, are jerks. They're just sitting out there, and not helping out much. And then something goes wrong. The table is not ready. Whatever the case is, and she's talking, and then all of a sudden he speaks about how careless she was, or how she was not ready for this or that. And now she's very upset, because his response or his reaction was just really, really that of a jerk. Now remember, so this is something that was simple and easy. Well, then what happens is that the guests, they come over, and everything is over, and he helps, and everything is tidy, and they're cleaning up things. And but you know what, he's just not there. He's thinking about something else. And here she is, still thinking about just what happened before the guests came over. And he did not say much, after that. And he just went to sleep. Well, then next morning, he doesn't say much because he was rushing out to go to work, and he did go to work. And in between, he really did not say much, and he came back home, and you know he had very little to say because tomorrow is going to be the big project that he has that is due, and they didn't get a chance to talk about what happened um, last night, and she is waiting for him to bring up that so that they can talk um, talk about it. And he, of course, he didn't. And why didn't he? Because he totally forgot about it. It never crossed his mind again. So he really did not say much, and he went to sleep early. And now she is feeling very, very depleted. And that her bank account, that's an emotional bank account, is empty. Now um, you take that scenario, and you may have a scenario of your own of how one day your wife was really bothered by something, and you just went and you had absolutely no idea what was happening, what was going through her mind, and you didn't even think it to be a big deal. You didn't even think about it um, at all. But these are the type of things that would make a woman feel insecure. The presence of conflict. That is not good news, especially if they go by unaddressed. Especially after the conflict, if there was a withdrawal, whether intentional or accidental. If that withdrawal is followed by silence, then the insecurity is really, really getting deeper and deeper at that point. And remember, when she is feeling insecure, it's not just that. Remember what we said about the anxiety, the preoccupation, the potential depression and withdrawal that is taking place, feeling undervalued. And then what happens is that the emotional bank is absolutely empty. Well, if that is the if that is the case, then what do you do when a person is feeling insecure? The first thing that you want to do is you want to give them assurances. Assurances is usually the very first step that ought to be taken. Subhanallah, one of my favorite stories is the story of Musa alayhi salam, but specifically, you all know the story of, when he met the two girls by the well, and then they asked him to meet the dad, was an elderly man, and he went and he met with the dad. And then the Quran tells us, فَلَمَّا قَصَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقَصَص, it said when Musa alayhi salam gave him his account of what happened and how he's fleeing from the Pharaoh. I love that very first statement that the elderly man made. What did he say? Anybody remembers what was the very first word that came out of his mouth? The elderly man. What did he immediately say to Musa alayhi salam? Anybody? You can go ahead and try. I mean, you're probably wrong anyways, but just go ahead and try anyways.
لا تخاف شيخ.
Ahsant. That was the first thing that he said to him. He said, لا تخف. He said, do not be afraid. نجوت من القوم الظالمين. You are completely safe from the wrongdoers or from these oppressors. You're safe here. The idea of when people are afraid, when they're feeling insecure, the very first thing that you want to do is let them know that they're safe. They are really safe. You get a lot when people feel secured, well grounded in their relationship. Now, let me shift gears a little bit and talk to my sisters about one thing that would really, really help you to know about what something about about men that is just extremely beyond important. Men do not like to feel emasculated. What does that mean? Do not undermine, undervalue me as a man. Okay. What in the world does that even mean? See, once a man feels emasculated, what it does to a man is that he literally, by emasculation, I mean that you doubt the man in him. And I'm not talking about physically doubting the man in him, just generally speaking, emasculating is what makes a man feel that sense of pride that when that is taken away from him, what usually happens is that literally a man would build a wall between him and the woman, and he would not want to get close to her. And sometimes people do these things and they're not necessarily intending to do that. Could be accidental, it could be well intended, but the end result is the same. And that is you do not want a man to feel emasculated. What I am about to say would be applicable to both men and women, but it would make such a much bigger deal if for a man. Okay, example. How would a woman emasculate a man? Number one, a man feels emasculated when when his wife withhold admiration. Remember this. Wallahi, and I tell you this with having seen what I have seen. Withholding admiration is a recipe for disaster. We are in relationships because we want to be valued and validated by the people that we care about. And we, like women, men also want to feel admired. And remember this, when you withhold admiration, and I have no idea, wallahi, I have no idea for the life of me. I don't know why we don't do this. I don't know why people do not express admiration. Remember, there is a difference between admiration and appreciation. Okay. But the minute you do this to a man, you withhold admiration. Admiration is literally like the fuel and energy that you give a man. There is a saying out there, um, and forgive me for saying this, but like I said, can I just um, say it like it is as they say, and that is I really want to make sure that I really want to speak freely. Okay, what I mean what I mean by this is the minute um, you withhold admiration and you withhold that, then eventually what happens is you withhold that fuel, you withhold that energy. We want um, words of admiration is like music to our ears. These are things that we really do want to hear um, the minute we feel this way. So what I wanted to say is um, when you see two people and you get the sense that, whoa, how did he end up with her? Or how did she end up with him? Because in your mind, you're thinking that, you know what, he is way out of her league, or she is way out of his league. But how, and you're just wondering, like, how in the world did he end up with her, or how in the world did, she end up with him? So the saying goes that a woman can take a man that is worth $2 and make him feel like he is worth $2 million. A woman can take a man who is worth $2 million and make him feel like he's worth $2. What happens? How do you do that? It is simply by this idea of withholding admiration or giving admiration. Okay? Withholding admiration is such a perfect way. of emasculating a man or having a man feel emasculated. Okay, not allowing him to finish his thought. Sisters, Allahi, let the man speak. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let him speak and is finish his thought. Okay, you want to explain, you want to rationalize. Generally speaking, women have a tendency to verbalize their process, their thought process. So my wife would ask me a question, and she would say, "Okay," and I'd say, "I'm thinking." What are you thinking? Well, I'm thinking. Give me a chance, and then I will tell you what is going on. So what we do is that we process everything internally, and then we gush out the end result. Okay. Now, okay, so my wife is not here, so I can't tell you this, but you'll just keep it between us, inshallah. Okay. I can say. All right. But what happens is not my wife, but somebody else. What happens is they will they have a tendency that they actually verbalize their the process itself is verbalized, not just the end result. The process itself is verbalized, which is, alhamdulillah, fine. But you do want a person to, you do want to give a person to finish their um thought. Withholding sex on regular basis, this is really, really one way of emasculating a man. Because see, remember, subhanallah, and when you look into a man, woman, when it comes to this idea of intimacy, remember that to a man, the act of intimacy is mostly biological. It is mostly physical, but also men use intimacy as a way of relieving tension from themselves. It's very common nowadays when I have young people who are unfortunately addicted to pornography. Prior to us, looking into their porn addiction, what I do is that I screen them for anxiety, because finding out that a good number of people are actually addicted to pornography because there is an underlying anxiety that is taking place, because men use sex and intimacy as a way of relieving tension. So withholding sex on regular basis, and remember the key word here is on regular basis, is actually not healthy. Shaming him in public, and alhamdulillah, you don't see this a lot, alhamdulillah, ya Rabbil Alameen. But what you want to do is appeal to the provider in a man. Men love to provide. I mean, in all honesty, see, the minute a man feels that they are not needed, that is when a man goes in complete depression and isolation. A man, like, just really, really, the idea of just feeling that he is needed is really, really, um, may sound primitive, but it is very important to a man. Appealing to the provider in that man is crucial. Okay, you really want to do that because that's what really men like to you know even in the Quran, they found studies, what happens after a couple they have babies. What do they want? What is the woman thinking, and what is the man thinking? And immediately what happens is that a woman is holding that baby, and she is talking about taking care of the baby, nurturing the baby, loving the baby. What is a man thinking? Need to protect that baby. I need to provide for that baby. I need to make it for that baby. And this is and this is what happens. Okay. Acting like his mother, you emasculate a man if you act like his mother. You are not his mother. You're not supposed to be his mother, and he is not. Um, uh, um, what's the word? And he is not appealing to the mother in you. Now, yes, caring is beautiful, but you should not be acting like his um, like his mother. And by the way, eventually, that relationship is not going to last if this is the kind of relationship you have. Okay? Um, it is not healthy, and you should not take on that that role of acting like his mother. Let's just do one more, inshallah, and I will stop. Um, minimizing his needs. Minimizing his needs would also be one way of um, emasculating a man. Please do remember that men are like women. They actually do have needs. They do want to talk about their feelings. They do want to talk about their challenges. They do want to talk about their day. They do want to talk about what they're facing. They do want to talk about their dreams. They do want to talk about, they really want to do that. Okay. And when a man starts sharing his feelings, that is usually a big deal. But the more comfortable people feel that, you know what, their needs are not minimized, they have been heard, that actually will will result in a positive way in how that person is uh, in a relationship. Okay, so remember, this is the beginning of many to come, inshallah. So if you were offended by something that I said, alhamdulillah, mission accomplished. But I want you to please be patient in the process, and that is, we are getting to just feel comfortable and say, look, man, this is going on. How do we make these things work better? Because this is ultimately what we are trying to accomplish, inshallah. Take away very, very simply, if you want one, is address issues of insecurity. Make sure that the person that you are with feel secure. Reassurances are very important. You don't just reassure once, but you are reassuring all the time by words that you verbalize, and also by actions that you make. Number two, to the sisters, whatever you do, please get to know this idea of what does it mean to emasculate a man. You never want to emasculate a man, because when you do that, you actually you lose on that. What does that mean? Please do not withhold admiration. Men, this is to them like fuel and energy. Men really like the idea of, being told that they are admired. Like we said, the idea of let the person finish their thoughts, do not minimize their needs, do not act like um, their mother. I think these are good places to begin, inshallah. So, having said this, I'm hoping that this, inshallah, starts um, more of a discussion rather than it just being a uh, a lecture. So, please feel free to share and here's actually a good question. And by the way, I'm sorry, we did go over time. It's 12:15, so inshallah I'll answer this question and we can reconvene next week, inshallah. A person is reading a book titled The Rational Male. The author states that the currency for a woman is giving attention. What is the best way to fill the emotional bank account of a woman? Yes. So remember, we spoke about this concept of an emotional bank. Okay, and let me say what we meant by the emotional bank. I think we might have um, brought that up. Okay, all right. So what I said about the about sorry, what I said about the emotional bank is it is a concept to just make it easier for brothers to imagine. So there is this account that your wife has, okay, and you are supposed to be making deposits into this account. And the type of deposits that you make, okay, are all what we call emotional deposits. These are words of kindness, acts of love, and you're constantly making deposits. The interesting part about this account is that the account does not carry over, meaning that the next morning your account is at zero. So you got to wake up in the morning and now you've got to make new deposits. The deposit that you made does not carry over for today because that was for yesterday. So your account is at zero every single day. You start at a zero and you start, filling in. Sometimes you can actually end up with having insufficient funds, okay, because you've been failing to do that, okay. And now the question is, this this deposit, what are what would be the kind of things that would um, act as like a good amount of deposit that you have made. So you can either make like big stuff or you can make a lot of little things. So the difference here is in for a man, you don't need to do a lot of these things. You can just do one thing, and that will be good for a month. So the other day, a brother needed a jumper, and he called me, and I went and you know what, I drove and I gave him a jumper, started his battery, and things were good. That's a good for the relationship for a while. Thank you so much for that jumper. The other day you just saved it, and that is just how it is. You do that with your wife, yeah, it will be appreciated, but you can't just be talking about this all the time. You've got to bring something new in there. So the author is suggesting, at least the book that the brother read is suggesting that the book is suggesting that the best deposit would be attention. I honestly, it really depends from a person to another, but I usually like the triple A approach or the quadruple A approach, which is really attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. That would be the type of deposits that you want to make. And you also want to make deposits that actually make sense to the other person, that the other person actually approves of as, yes, that is a deposit. Um, and somebody asked actually earlier about the difference between appreciation and admiration. Okay, so admiration are usually about qualities, and appreciation is usually in reference to behavior. What we mean by that when we say appreciation, we're talking about seeing the good that was done by the other person and not being afraid of pointing this out. That is crucial. Admiration is usually qualities about that individual. And it's not just about lexicon, but it's just our ability to see the good in the person and the good that was done by the person. Why is this important? Because remember that any behavior that gets rewarded is definitely a behavior that will be repeated. And I think this is and I think this is the part that sometimes we forget on. And that is, if you like something, say it. And because remember, when you let the other people know that you've actually you took a note of it, oh, it's crazy. At that point people would want to do it. People would want to do it more. I finish with this story. um I think I told the story before to the sisters the other day. I think, I don't know, just gotten into the habit of making Indian food, so I decided to make dal, and I made really good dal. It was really good. It was really good. It was good dal. And what happened is I made the dal, and my family enjoyed it. And one of the kids said, "Baba," he said, "this is the best food I have tasted, Baba." Then he came and he literally just kissed me. He goes, Baba, this was such good food. And he was eating it and enjoying it. And I said, Baba, wallahi, this is the best food ever. Then he came and he kissed me again. Then he said, Baba, he said, there is no food better than this food. And he's enjoying it. Then he came and he goes, Baba, the only food that can be better than this is the food in Jannah. He said, man, my head got so big, I cook dal every day. Okay. What happened? Because any behavior that gets rewarded is a behavior that will be repeated. And when people see this, when people hear this, men and women, but sometimes sisters forget that the fuel and the energy for a man are words of admiration. You do not want to stop that. By the way, this is not just to say that this is fuel and energy for men, it's also fuel and energy for women. But the tendency sometimes is that we think it is only needed by women and that men actually don't need that. When there is, the idea of pointing out admiration, it is not about babysitting. It's not about massaging his ego. It is not about making his head big. It is literally about when you see something good, do not be afraid of saying it. Do not intentionally withhold admiration. Make it a point that if you see something that is admirable, you actually say it out. Simply because it would literally be the fuel and the energy by which this person is going to operate. Let me put it differently and see, inshallah, if I can get this. They had a study on why do people work where they work. And most people would say they get paid well. It turned out that this was actually not the case. It turned out that people worked out where they worked out, and their number one reason was this is where they felt appreciated. They could have been working somewhere else, making more money, but they're choosing to work in this place because they feel appreciated in this in this place. So we're not talking about something that is, it's not a foreign concept. Maybe in the way that it was said, that a man's feel emasculated. Because remember, we're just talking about a man's role or identity as a male is either deprived or it is being diminished. How do you not do that? And we're simply saying that withholding admiration, especially by people whom he cares about, where their validation is really important, that can be a process by which a man feels emasculated. But inshallah, a topic worthy of further discussion next week, inshallah, ya Rabbil Alameen. Same time, same place, plenty of parking space. And inshallah, we will see you all on Sunday at 11 a.m.